Hello, hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to TribeMomma Talks, where I talk and you listen, because sometimes we just need someone to fill the silence. How are you today? I don't know about you, but we've got a little break in the weather in my neck of the woods. It's nearly 30 degrees, absolutely balmy. So, been hearing a lot of dripping, all the snow, drip, 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 drip. Anyway, today I felt like doing something a little different. We're still on Reddit, but I felt like looking at some stories. So we are going to be exploring some creative writing. And I picked out a few that I thought were interesting, and I hope that you enjoy listening to. So grab yourself a drink, settle in with some chores, whatever, and let's get started. This first story is written by Yeti181. It's called Insatiable. Tokuzo sat waiting for closing. It was unseasonably cold, and he had served few customers that day. As the light faded, he was just thinking of closing early when the door slid open. A monk walked in, wearing a threadbare orange robe, shaking off the frost. "Come, come, have a seat," Tokuzo said. "You must be freezing." The monk simply nodded. A wide-brimmed hat covered much of his face in shadow. What Tokuzo could see of it looked waxy and stiff from the cold. The monk took a seat at the table and gestured toward the bowls stacked on the counter. "One bowl of noodles coming up," Tokuzo said, dishing out a large portion of soba and sliding it to the monk. "So, where you come," Tokuzo began, but before he could finish, the monk had already downed his bowl and gestured for another. Tokuzo laughed. "Hungry, huh? You must have traveled a long way." The monk gave a slight nod and placed several tarnished coins on the counter as Tokuzo passed him another bowl of soba. He had scarcely picked up the worn, slightly wet coins before the monk finished yet another bowl, broth running down his chin, and gestured again. "Slow down, sir, slow down!" Tokuzo let out a light laugh. "Plenty of soba, and you're the only customer." He passed the monk another bowl as more coins were laid down, giving off an earthy smell. Tokuzo watched in shock as the monk slurped up yet another bowl and placed still more coins on the counter. The stack of dishes and coins continued to grow higher. The monk didn't chew at all. He just poured bowl after bowl of soba into his mouth. The air in the shop was a mix of savory broth and wet earth. The monk had eaten over a dozen bowls and had barely slowed down, gulping them as quickly as Tokuzo could serve them. The only sound in the shop was a wet, rhythmic sucking. Shakily, Tokuzo passed over another bowl. He wanted to shoo the monk away, to say it was closing time, anything to get rid of him. But the stack of coins kept growing, and it had been a slow day, after all. "You've single-handedly made up for the lack of customers," remarked Tokuzo with a flat chuckle. The monk did not answer, just continued guzzling bowl after bowl. Tokuzo was gripping the ladle so hard his knuckles had gone white. Any normal man's stomach would have burst by now. Tokuzo swallowed, his mouth dry. All right, sir," Tokuzo almost whispered. "I need you to go now, so you'll have to leave." The monk simply finished his bowl and laid down several more dirty brass coins, ignoring Tokuzo's plea. "Sir, did you hear me? I said I have to—" The monk slammed a fist onto the counter, causing the pile of bowls to clatter, and slid even more coins forward. Terrified, Tokuzo continued serving him until, losing count of how many bowls of soba, the monk finally stood, bowed politely, and walked out into the night, leaving Tokuzo with a towering stack of dishes and an impressive pile of crude coins. Tokuzo was shaking. He knew he should stay and clean, count the money, and try to forget, but something compelled him to follow. Grabbing a lantern, he stepped out into the dark. The wind howled. Tokuzo wrapped himself in a heavy cloak, shivering violently, but the monk in the distance walked stiffly upright, ignorant to the frost clinging to his thin robes. After several minutes, the monk turned toward the cemetery. "What am I doing?" Tokuzo whispered as he pushed open the iron gate, its rusted hinges screeching into the night. He swung his lantern. Shadows danced across the gravestones, but the monk was nowhere to be found. The wind blew harder, flickering the lantern's flame. Tokuzo pulled his cloak tight, intending to turn back, when he caught a glimpse of the threadbare robe moving further ahead. "This is foolishness," he told himself. "There is nothing to be gained." But despite his more rational thoughts, his feet continued forward. When the path dissolved into the tangled weeds at the far end of the graveyard, the monk was gone. But what Tokuzo found made his knees weak. A fresh grave had been dug, the soil still loose and dark. He approached, the lantern shaking in his hand. When the light hit the headstone, he nearly fell. It was a statue of Jizo. At its base were fresh, steaming droplets of soba broth and a single noodle draped over the stone's cold lips. Okay, so if you're anything like me, you do not know what Jizo refers to, so I decided to Google it, and this is what I've got. Apologies for my terrible pronunciation. Jizo is one of Japan's most beloved bodhisattvas, revered as the compassionate protector of travelers, women, and especially children, including unborn or deceased souls. Often appearing as a humble stone-carved monk in traditional red bibs or caps, Jizo is known as the Earth Treasurer, who vows to save beings from suffering in hell. And so I just thought that was very, very interesting and a very cool story of it doesn't say anything about Jizo being hungry. It could be that he's been dead for a while. He built up an appetite. Maybe he only gets to come out to eat every now and then. But yeah, okay, moving on. All right. Our second story was written by Ordinary Eye 2710. The first thing they teach you in medicine. I learned early in medicine that fear has a smell. It's not blood, not antiseptic. It's older than both. Metallic, yes, but sweet too. Like breath held too long. Like pennies soaked in honey. Once you notice it, you never stop noticing it. It was strongest in room 317. The chart said unresponsive. The monitor said stable. The patient said nothing at all, because his jaw had been wired shut after he tried to bite through his own tongue. They told me he was found in his apartment clawing at the walls. Fingernails torn off, dry blood in crescent shapes around every light switch, every mirror. He hadn't been trying to escape. He'd been trying to get out. His eyes tracked me when I entered. Too alert for someone sedated. Too aware. The smell hit me immediately. Fear. Fresh, ripe, humming. I checked his pupils. Even. Dilated just a little too wide. "Can you hear me?" I asked. He nodded, once, slow, careful, like movement cost him something. I lifted the clipboard so he could see the pen and paper clipped to it. "You can write." His hand shook violently when I placed the pen in his fingers. The moment the tip touched paper, he froze. Every muscle locked. His eyes rolled toward the ceiling like he was watching something pace above him. Then he wrote, "It's still practicing." My stomach dropped. That familiar clinical instinct kicked in, the one that tries to rationalize before panic has time to bloom. "Practicing what?" I asked. His breathing spiked. Monitors chirped softly. He scratched at the paper so hard the pen tore through it. "Us." A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. A reflex. Nurses laugh at the worst things. We call it coping. That's when he started crying. Not sobbing, not shaking, just tears leaking silently from the corners of his eyes, tracking sideways into his hairline as he lay flat. He wrote again. "It learns where you look." The lights flickered. Just once, barely noticeable, the kind of thing hospitals do all the time. Still, every hair on my arm stood straight up. I stepped closer to the bed, lowered my voice. "What do you think is here with you?" He squeezed his eyes shut. His fingers twitched like something was pulling on invisible strings beneath his skin. Then very carefully he wrote, "Don't turn around." I turned around. Nothing there, just the door. The hallway beyond it stretched long and empty, fluorescent lights buzzing like trapped insects. A janitor's cart sat abandoned near the nurse's station. When I turned back, the patient was screaming. Sound tore through the wires in his jaw, wet, muffled, wrong. Blood bubbled between his teeth as he thrashed against the restraints, eyes locked on something over my shoulder, something I could feel now. Pressure, like standing too close to a speaker turned up too high, like being watched by something that didn't need eyes. The smell was everywhere. Fear. Mine now. The heart monitor flatlined. Code blue, shouts, footsteps, hands everywhere. Someone pulled me back as the room filled with bodies and noise and motion. But even as they worked him, shocked him, called time of death, I couldn't stop thinking about the paper. I went back after, told myself it was for documentation, for closure, for sanity. The room was empty, cleaned already, bed stripped, no sign of struggle. Except the paper, still clipped to the board. One final line had been added beneath the others, the handwriting steadier now, more confident. "You turned around too fast." I laughed again, harder this time, shoved the paper into my pocket, and told myself I needed sleep. That night at home, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. It blinked a fraction of a second after I did. I stared, held my breath. The delay stretched, subtle, wrong. Then my reflection smiled. I didn't. Beneath it, behind me, something shifted. Not visible, not exactly, just a distortion, like heat over asphalt, like a shape being rehearsed. My reflection raised a finger to its lips, and on the mirror, written backward in fogged glass, were the words, "Thank you for practicing." This next story was written by Eric Shane Rick. Welcome to the Sabbath. It was supposed to have been a normal trip past the countryside. Stacy Richburg cuddled with her boyfriend Adam in the passenger seat in his car as he drove down Route 64. The two planned a cozy retreat to the woods as part of a summer getaway. Their smiles were so vibrant at the thought of all the fun that awaited them. All of their plans died once Adam's tire went out. Any attempt he made to control the vehicle was done in vain. The car skidded down the road with frantic speed before tumbling out of control. Stacy was fortunate enough to only suffer a few cuts and bruises. Adam wasn't so lucky. His body was battered like a rag doll, and his legs bent at odd angles. As Stacy crawled out of the destroyed vehicle, she felt her heart plummet upon seeing his condition. "Adam! Oh my God! Adam, are you okay?" she screamed while resisting the urge to yank her lover out of the car. She knew pulling him out in his state could leave him even more injured. "I'm gonna be honest, babe. I'm not feeling too hot, but thank God you're all right. That's what matters most." Adam forced himself to smile despite the mind-numbing pain he was trapped in. He had to give Stacy some reassurance, even if it was faked. "Babe, I'm gonna find some help. I promise it won't take long. I'll be right back." Stacy paused for a moment to give her boyfriend one last loving look before running off in a random direction. Her heart threatened to burst out of her chest during the maddening dash into the wild. She was trapped in the middle of nowhere without a single soul to offer help. She dashed through the deserted plains, clinging to the sliver of hope she had left. After several minutes of uneventful searching, she was almost certain that she was doomed. She scoured her surroundings with a flashlight she took from the trunk of the car. The dying sun on the horizon indicated the advent of the night. Stacy shuddered at the thought of a bloodied Jeff trapped in that all alone in utter darkness. It was too much to bear. She hurried her pace through the empty fields. It was to her relief she spotted a factory ledged on a cliff a few yards away. "Oh, please let there be a working phone there," she muttered out loud. Stacy bolted off into the distance and soon approached the factory. To call the factory decrepit-looking would have been charitable. Rust and grime covered almost every inch of the building. Stacy even spotted a few pentagrams drawn on the walls. She wanted to tell herself it was just kids having fun, but her gut said otherwise. Stacy steeled her nerves as she forced herself up a flight of rusted stairs. The stairs sounded like they were screaming for dear life with every step she took. Stacy considered herself lucky that the stairs didn't collapse. Everything in her heart was pleading for her to turn back, but another part of her wanted to cling to any possibility she could. Perhaps there was still an operable phone that could be used, or maybe even a vagrant she could talk to. There had to be something. She paused. Stacy swore she saw the shadow of someone standing on the staircase. They loomed overhead and almost seemed to be hover in the air. Stacy blinked in surprise, only to find that the figure had disappeared. "What the hell was that?" she muttered before progressing up the stairs. She quickly wrote off the incident as her stress getting to her. Stacy completed her flight up the stairs and slowly turned the knob on the door in front of her. Cold air was quick to assail her face once she opened the door. Immediately after stepping inside, the door slammed shut behind Stacy with a loud clang. She fiddled with the knob, only to find that the door was locked. "What the hell is going on around here? This place is fucked up!" Stacy threw her hands in the air while her eyes flared up. It seemed clear to her that the universe conspired to drag out her despair. With nothing left to do, Stacy traveled to the factory in search of a telephone. She found all manner of decayed walls, moldy tiles, broken machinery, and shattered glass, but no telephone. What she did find was something that shook her to her core. Scattered about the building were newspaper clippings of past tragedies. 4 campers had been reported missing at the Great Willows Forest. The group of adults in their early 20s were last seen by Park Ranger John Smitherin in a state of panic. He reports that they claim to have been stalked by a group of men in black robes, but no such individuals have been found. They also allege to have heard what is described as loud demonic chanting near their campsite late at night. Further investigations have revealed traces of blood and discarded hair near the location of their campsite. Please be on the lookout for any suspicious individuals while the police continue their investigations. Stacy's blood ran cold once the realization dawned on her. There was a group of satanic killers running around in the area not far from here. Her desire to get the hell out of there shot through the roof. Stacy knew at that moment she was potentially trapped inside with those freaks, and her only option was to venture further in hopes of finding an exit. As she dived deeper into the factory, she was almost certain she could hear the sound of footsteps approaching. The building was a confusing labyrinth of alternating corners, and yet the footsteps grew louder, as if intent on finding her. Her feet slammed against the floor in her mad dash across the factory. Stacy's breath was frantic and her mind was in chaos. She was doing everything in her power to distance herself from the footsteps. She wasn't sure if they were real or if her fear was messing with her mind, but she didn't plan on waiting to find out. She ducked around a corner and quickly entered a room to her left. The room was dark, except for the small amount of light coming from the floor. A set of lit candles illuminated the space, revealing several pentagrams drawn all over the room. In the middle of the floor was a woman tied down and covered in dried blood. The faintest of screams could be heard coming from her gagged mouth. Stacy didn't have any time to scream herself before a set of powerful hands grabbed her from behind. Another sacrifice has joined the altar. Cold steel plunged into Stacy's back until it connected with bone. An upward motion created a long slash across her spine area and sent blood raining on the floor. Her cries of pain reverberated through the halls of the factory. In her last moments of consciousness, Stacy saw a black miasma emanating from the several pentagrams painted all over the room. The black energy shifted around in the air until it took the shape of a horned figure. Welcome to the Sabbath. I don't know about you, but I don't care for the survival instincts of any of these characters. Today, we've got somebody following a shifty character that came into their noodle shop into a graveyard, only to come to the conclusion that they just were visited by a ghost. But hey, at least in his case, the ghost paid well. You know what I mean? Wasn't there to do any harm, and Jizo sounds like a pretty cool guy. So, but the hospital one, the nurse, a poor nurse. Granted, that one feels like it could happen to anybody. You know, I mean, it's that one. It feels like a Smile situation where you can't really blame the nurse for ending up in the situation. But the last one, girl, Stacy, what? I kind of feel like there were other choices Stacy could have made, but I mean, once she was in the factory, it was over for Stacy. I don't know why I ended up with 3 uneasy stories. Maybe I'm just drawn to that stuff, but I hope you enjoyed listening to them. I enjoyed the writing. I thought they created a nice mood. Personally, my favorite was the nurse one. I'm not really into supernatural, but there's something about that one that I found really well written and created a feeling inside of me. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed your time with me. And if you did, why don't you tickle that like button, show me your appreciation and the appreciation to these writers who share their work. And if you'd like to join me for another time, hit